Torah reference. Exodus, and a man of the house of Levi went and took a wife of the daughters of Lev. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. Bible reference. Acts, at this time Moses was born, and was well pleasing unto God, and he was nourished in his father's house 3 months. Quran reference. Surah al-Qasas, we inspired the mother of Moses. Suckle him, and when you fear for him, cast him into the river. And the river will take him to Pharaoh's palace, so that he may be raised among the powerful, to be prepared for a divine mission. The city was alive with the golden glow of dawn, its streets whispering tales of power, intrigue, and destiny. The palace of Pharaoh loomed above the Nile, a monument of splendor and absolute authority, every stone a testament to centuries of rule and the grandeur of Egypt's unbroken dynasties. Within these walls, corridors stretched like veins, carrying whispers of ambition, loyalty, and secrets too dangerous to speak aloud. It was here, in this gilded labyrinth, that Musa would begin a journey no ordinary mortal could imagine, a path that would forever intertwine the fates of kingdoms and the will of the divine. Musa's childhood in the palace was unlike that of any other. Draped in fine linens, shielded from the harsh realities of the streets, he knew laughter, learning, and the subtle, unseen weight of expectation. Tutors recited ancient wisdoms, scribes recorded events in meticulous detail, and the air was thick with incense and the unspoken tension of rulers who commanded life and death with a mere word. Yet beneath the comfort, an awareness lingered, a whisper in the soul, that his life was destined for more than luxury, more than adoration. He played among the courtyards and gardens, yet the Nile's eternal flow reminded him of another world beyond the marble and gold. Children of the city ran barefoot, their laughter echoing across bridges and alleys. Musa, though a prince in title, often felt the invisible barrier that separated him from the suffering he had been spared. The palace was a cocoon, but the outside world, the one marked by injustice, toil, and human frailty, called to him, even in dreams. One fateful day, the weight of that divide would manifest in a way no one could predict. The incident began as a simple quarrel, as they often do in crowded streets. Musa, now a young man with strength and courage that belied his years, intervened when he saw an Egyptian taskmaster striking an Israelite man. The clash of fists and cries drew attention, yet Musa's presence alone carried authority. The conflict escalated, tempers flared, and in a sudden, irreversible moment, the young prince's hand struck with lethal force. The Egyptian lay lifeless before him. Silence followed, heavier than the walls of the palace themselves. In that instant, the reality of mortality and consequence became undeniable. Musa's heart pounded with both fear and the unexplainable weight of destiny. He had acted out of instinct and compassion, yet the act, accidental or not, was a crime punishable by death. Pharaoh's eyes, if they had known, would have gazed upon him not as a son of the palace but as a threat. The Nile itself seemed to murmur a warning, carrying him away from the only life he had known. Musa fled, slipping past guards and courtiers, navigating the twisting streets with a familiarity born of both upbringing and desperation. Every alleyway was a potential trap, every shadow a threat. Yet the hand of divine protection guided him, and the city that had once embraced him now became a maze from which he had to escape. His journey led him to the edge of Egypt, to the lands of Madyan, a distant place of rivers, mountains, and strangers whose lives were untouched by the intrigues of Pharaoh's court. There, Musa would seek refuge, a new beginning far from the palace walls that had nurtured and confined him. Yet even in exile, the lessons of his past remained alive. Strength tempered by compassion, justice tempered by wisdom, and the understanding that destiny often arrives in moments of chaos and fear. Parallel to this story, history in the ancient world whispered similar tales. In Mycenaean Greece, young warriors were groomed within fortified palaces, taught both the art of combat and the weight of kingship. The legends of the Trojan War era speak of heroes whose lives were shaped by accidents, misunderstandings, and the inexorable pull of fate. Musa's escape mirrored the journeys of these legendary figures, cast out, seeking justice, and destined to return transformed. Even now, as the sun rose over Madyan's distant hills, Musa's eyes reflected a mixture of sorrow, courage, and determination. The boy of the palace had ended one chapter and begun another, unaware of the trials and triumphs that awaited him. Exile was not the end, it was the forge in which a prophet would be shaped, the crucible in which mercy and justice would intertwine in the hands of one chosen by God. And so, as Musa disappeared into the wilderness, a world both ordinary and extraordinary awaited him, a world that would test him, challenge him, and prepare him for the destiny that had always been written in the stars, whispered by the Nile, and proclaimed in the words of the Torah, Bible, and Quran. Musa pressed forward through the rugged terrain, each step away from Egypt both freeing and terrifying. The Nile's fertile plains gave way to hills, valleys, and untamed wilderness. For the first time, he walked without palace walls shielding him, without the weight of gold and silk cushioning every footstep. The air was raw, carrying the scent of soil and distant rain, whispering the promise of a life yet undefined. Exile was a harsh teacher. Hunger gnawed at his belly, the sun scorched his skin, and nights offered only the distant murmur of stars as company. Musa had been trained in wisdom, in letters, and in the etiquette of kings, but the wilderness demanded more: endurance, courage, and humility. He remembered the words of the tutors who had praised his intellect and strength, but he realized that true knowledge was now tested not in the comfort of palace halls, but in survival and reflection. It was in the cool shadows of a forested riverbank that Musa first saw the people of Madyan. Shepherds tended flocks of goats and sheep, children laughed while chasing one another, and merchants bargained over the exchange of grains and fabrics. The society was simple, yet vibrant, ruled not by tyranny but by customs and fairness. Here, Musa felt a faint relief, as though the weight of Egypt's unforgiving court was finally lifting. But even in this refuge, Musa could not escape the echoes of what had occurred. The accidental death of the Egyptian lingered in his mind, a shadow over every step. Guilt intertwined with fear, and yet beneath it all, he felt the stirrings of purpose. The same hand that had struck the Egyptian, the same will that had guided him to flee, seemed now to whisper a deeper truth, that destiny was never halted by fear, and that exile could be a crucible for greatness. As days turned into weeks, Musa encountered the family of Prophet Shuaib, a respected leader in Madyan. Their life was one of balance and justice, guiding caravans, maintaining fair trade, and mediating disputes among clans. It was here that Musa's character began to shine in new ways. He helped in tending flocks, learning the subtle rhythms of labor and responsibility, gaining the respect of the family and their community. Patience became a companion, humility a teacher, and each action, no matter how small, shaped the man he was destined to become. The parallels with the legends of the Mycenaean Greek world were striking. In those ancient palaces, heirs and princes were often thrust into conflict, sent away or exiled, tested by war, diplomacy, and personal trials. The heroes of the Trojan War era, much like Musa, had to navigate uncertain alliances, face moral dilemmas, and grow in wisdom far beyond what comfort and luxury could teach. History, it seemed, repeated a familiar lesson: greatness is forged not by privilege but by the trials that test the soul. Musa's journey in Madyan was not without danger. Desert paths were treacherous, local disputes could escalate into violence, and every foreigner was viewed with caution. Yet Musa's sense of justice, combined with his inherent strength, allowed him to navigate these challenges. He mediated disputes, defended those unjustly treated, and displayed a wisdom that set him apart, even among the people of this distant land. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains and painted the sky with strokes of orange and crimson, Musa reflected upon his journey. He thought of Pharaoh's palace, of the streets of Egypt, of the life he had left behind. But he also saw the possibilities that lay ahead. Exile had taught him endurance. Service had taught him humility. And observation had taught him insight. The boy who had struck an Egyptian in a moment of fury was now becoming a man capable of guiding others, of discerning justice, and of preparing for a mission that transcended any earthly kingdom. The lessons of Madyan were clear. The world rewarded patience, compassion, and courage, not fear or arrogance. Musa's path intertwined with the lives of ordinary people, the humble shepherds, the diligent traders, and the wise family of Shuaib. Every encounter became a stepping stone, every challenge a trial of character, and every day a rehearsal for the destiny that awaited him beyond these hills. Even the whispers of history seemed to echo across time. The Mycenaean kings and Trojan heroes had faced exile, betrayal, and moral testing before achieving glory. Musa's exile mirrored these journeys, yet his mission was singular and divine. He was not merely a hero of legend, he was a prophet, chosen to carry the message of mercy, justice, and faith to a people trapped under tyranny. The weight of his destiny pressed upon him, but now, unlike before, it was tempered by understanding, humility, and the resilience he had cultivated in the far reaches of Madyan. And so, as night fell and the stars emerged like scattered jewels across the desert sky, Musa settled among the people of Shuaib. He had crossed rivers of fear, climbed mountains of responsibility, and walked valleys of reflection. The boy who had fled Pharaoh's wrath was transforming into a man ready to confront the challenges of history itself. The palace was behind him, the crime a shadow in memory, but the path forward was illuminated by divine guidance and the timeless lessons of courage, justice, and human compassion. Musa had now lived among the people of Madyan for years, and in that time, he had grown in stature, wisdom, and moral strength. The boy who had fled the palace in fear had transformed into a man whose presence commanded respect without the need for royal trappings. The flocks he tended, the caravans he assisted, and the disputes he mediated had all honed him into a leader of integrity. Yet, despite his comfort in this foreign land, the memory of Egypt, the golden palace, the Nile's flowing waters, and the people still suffering under Pharaoh's tyranny, remained etched in his heart. The family of Shuaib recognizing Musa's intelligence, strength, and unwavering sense of justice, offered him the hand of one of their daughters in marriage and a place in their household. Musa accepted, not for personal gain, but to root himself in service and community. He embraced the daily toil of Madyan life, blending humility with the quiet confidence of one guided by divine purpose. Every interaction became a lesson, every decision a reflection of the balance between mercy and judgment, between compassion and firmness. Through these years, Musa observed the customs, laws, and social structures of Madyan. Unlike the oppressive, centralized power of Pharaoh, Madyan thrived on negotiation, fairness, and accountability. Traders and shepherds alike respected one another, disputes were resolved openly, and leaders like Shuaib were accountable to the people they served. Musa's heart absorbed these lessons, understanding that leadership was not the dominion over others, but the stewardship of justice and mercy. The echoes of ancient civilizations and legends resonated in Musa's mind. The Mycenaean palaces had been halls of war preparation, filled with strategy and militarization, yet even they could not dictate the moral arcs of their youth. The heroes of the Trojan War era faced exile, betrayal, and testing of character, yet Musa's trial was distinct. His path was not merely earthly fame or glory, but the shaping of a mission that would ripple through history. Like those heroes, he had been tested by circumstance and chance, yet unlike them, he was guided by divine providence. One day, a caravan approached Madyan, carrying goods and news from distant lands. Musa, now confident and well integrated into the community, assisted in the negotiations, demonstrating wisdom and patience that far exceeded his years. The traders marveled at his discernment and fairness, and whispers spread about the stranger with the calm gaze and just hand. It was clear that Musa had not only survived exile but had flourished because of it. In reflection, Musa realized that every hardship, every flight from danger, and every act of compassion had been preparation. The accidental killing in Egypt, though tragic, had forced him into a life of reflection and service. The palace that had once sheltered him now existed only as a memory, a reminder that power without justice is fragile, and that destiny often arrives disguised as trial and displacement. History, too, offered its own validation. The heroes of ancient Greece, who had endured exile and war, had shaped myths and legacies that would echo for millennia. Musa's own journey mirrored these stories. Displacement is a crucible, service is training, and moral integrity is the path to greatness. Yet Musa's mission carried a unique weight. He was chosen to confront tyranny, guide a people to liberation, and embody the principles of divine justice and mercy. As the years in Madyan continued, Musa grew ever closer to understanding the divine plan for him. The exile had been a necessary step, shaping a man capable of confronting Pharaoh's cruelty, guiding the oppressed, and teaching humanity lessons in faith, courage, and righteousness. He had learned that true strength lay not in wealth, power, or titles, but in patience, justice, and the ability to act with mercy even when circumstances demanded otherwise. And so, Musa stood on the banks of a quiet river in Madyan, watching the sun rise and feeling the promise of what lay ahead. The boy who had once struck an Egyptian in a moment of panic was now a man tempered by exile, experienced in service, and ready to fulfill a destiny that would alter the course of history. The palace was behind him, the crime remembered, but the escape had transformed him into a figure capable of leadership and divine mission. Through Musa's story, one learns the universal lesson that destiny often comes in forms we do not anticipate. Adversity, exile, and reflection are not punishments but preparation. History, myth, and scripture all converge to show that those who endure, who learn from their trials, and who act with courage and integrity, will ultimately rise to fulfill their true purpose. Musa's exile in Madyan was not the end of his story, it was the forge that would shape a prophet. His life would continue to intersect with Pharaoh's tyranny, the liberation of Bani Israel, and the timeless struggle between justice and oppression. But in these quiet years among the people of Schwabe, Musa had discovered the principles that would guide his every action: humility in power, wisdom in judgment, and compassion in justice. If you've been inspired by Musa's journey, click subscribe and join us in exploring the hidden truths of history, faith, and destiny. Share this story with friends, and stay tuned as we continue to uncover the incredible paths of those chosen to change the world. The journey is far from over, and the lessons of courage, justice, and faith are more relevant today than ever.